Oh, hello. Thanks for joining me. Today we want to answer a very simple question. Should you clean your NAS? These are devices that are on 24/7. They are on 365 days of the year sometimes. And let's face it, we're hanging around these devices. They don't half get dirty sometimes. So, 1, should you clean it? 2, what should you not do? And 3, what are the net benefits of doing so? But in order to do that, we're going to need a little tool for today's video. Not this mug, nice ceramic mug. Today, we're going to be utilising this. This is a wonderful little air blower that allows us to be able to remove the dust from our NAS system. Now, this is going to be important because more than anything, I find that on a NAS, the killer, the thing that makes it perform at its worst is heat. And you can have this system set up for a myriad of weeks or months or years. But if there isn't sufficient airflow, it means that the dust in the air, the dust in the surrounding environment, is going to collect around this system. And with it, it's going to affect the cooling of it, the heat efficiency, and ultimately how hard the system's going to have to work. And in some cases, that the system might work a little too hard and be detrimental to its overall health. It's a small margin, but it does happen. But before you go down that road, you've got to think about what the damage you might cause. Because let's face it, the thing I'm going to discuss today, cleaning a NAS, with this puppy right here, we're going to be talking about getting inside this system. Now, number one, this isn't the only way to clean a NAS. Some of you that are far more tech experienced will be more than happy to strip down a system like this and redo the thermal paste, rewire it, and more. Again, keep in mind with a lot of turnkey NAS solutions, you are risking support and warranty there because some of them, and they shouldn't really do so, don't really let you muck around with your own hardware. And in some cases, like far more modest compact NAS solutions, like those tiny little Twin Lake and Alder Lake flash systems, they have strategically placed thermal paste, or in some cases have been constructed so they can't easily be deconstructed without cracking the chassis. So do keep that in mind. And that is why I'm focusing on using this today, because this is going to deliver enough air and pressure delivery that allows us to remove dust from in the systems that we're going to test today and find out what the net benefits are. But why this device? This from a company called Synric, I know, me neither, had this listed online for shy of $50. It has 120,000 RPM delivery. It's got a 6,000 milliamp battery inside. It has a USB-C connector there at the top for that power delivery. Looking at my notes, it can deliver that top speed, and that's 54 meters per second, which equates to 121 miles per hour wind speed on this device. And on that battery, it can last for 20 minutes, but it can go on for much longer if you go for some of the lower systems there. Power holding the button, and you've got the adjustable there on the rear to deliver that. Again, this knocks around, it's on promo, I think, when I got it. For about $50. Now, I went for it, although there are a lot of other alternatives in the market. I will say the majority of the other ones I saw either arrived with a smaller battery, or they arrived with a lower total wind power there, or they arrived without USB-C. These three things were a deal breaker there. And this is what we're going to be using for today. I didn't use any of the additional parts and components it arrives with. I think you can use it on a car. I can't drive, so that's not beneficial. But let's talk a little bit more about how we went about testing the net benefits of cleaning a NAS of dust. Now, given the overwhelming number of parameters and variables between your NAS setup, my NAS setup, and everyone else's NAS setup, trying to get consistency across tests was always going to be difficult. So I have got 3 different tests I was running for today's video. 3 different NAS systems in 3 different configurations and deployments. So let's crack on with our first one. Now, our first test was using a Synology DS920 Plus that was only being used for multimedia. It'd been on for around about a year of utility from what I understand, and when I wanted to go ahead and do my tests, I saw the device, which hopefully you can see from the videos on screen. Dust buildup on it wasn't insurmountable, but it certainly was noticeable across all areas, including the hard drive trays. Now, the system, I powered it down for 24 hours. I was real popular when I did that, but when when I powered it back on, I powered it on with no cleaning for around 90 minutes because I wanted to get an understanding of the base temperature after the initial 15 minutes of boot up there. So we can see from the temperatures on screen that it was sat at around a system temperature of around 61 degrees, and the drives inside were around 46 to 53 degrees, with the middle bays obviously being the hottest there, likely due to the air being restricted somewhat by the side vents on the system limiting that airflow. Also with the thermal camera there, I could see around it that heat was already starting to build around the back of it, around the vents as well. So you can see the air wasn't being able to completely circulate around the system. And that is where we got onto our cleaning. We grabbed our big old air gun here and we started getting down to the cleaning, stripping the device down. We didn't go too deep because the whole idea is we didn't want to test if we took the device right down to its minor components, because very few people are going to do that, and also that does have a danger of invalidating your hardware warranty. The idea was to only take it apart in the ways that looked like it could be done without harming the system in any way, and only using the air gun. No moisture, no using grease, no using additional thermal paste, just cleaning there. Air cleaning around the whole thing. We then went ahead and put the device back together and then rebooted the device in exactly the same location that it was before, but from there I went ahead and then ran it for 90 minutes to see what the temperature difference would be after the same period of time. And I'm pleased to say there was a notable drop. We saw the temperature there drop down to 44 degrees. Now, we have to at least acknowledge that on the one hand, maybe during the cleaning outside, there was some resonance of that colder air on it. But if you look at the day and you cross-reference that against the UK, you'll know that all three of the cleaning that took place here took place during a heat wave. So the amount of cool air was limited in the extreme, but still nonetheless we ran it for those 90 minutes, but it was a substantial difference there at 44 degrees for the system temperature, which was a drop of around 15 to 16 degrees. And in terms of the additional drives, we saw between 31 to 34 degrees on the hard drive, so a notable difference there in terms of temperature. And we went in with a thermal camera, we saw almost exclusively across and around the whole system, apart from when we went really, really close to the thermal camera, only around 31 to 34 degrees. So early doors, the DS920 there, I was really, really impressed with it. So next up, we went for a system that had been running a lot longer and doing harder work. This was the QNAP TS-453E. This was being used for light multimedia, but predominantly as a backup, running synchronized backups all the time and having lower amounts of downtime. Again, we powered the device off for 24 hours to get it down to just general ambient temperature, and then booted it up once again for those 90 minutes. Now, unlike the Synology we just looked at, the base level temperatures are actually a lot higher on the 453E. Now, again, we are talking about different NASs, different hard drives. There's so many variables here. This is by no means a scientifically proven experiment, but the CPU was sat at 53 degrees, the system was at 50 degrees, and the drives were sat between 45 and 48 degrees, with one of the drives coincidentally reporting bad sectors there that I noticed during this. This wasn't to do with handling the system, but it was a good time to find out one of the drives was on its way out. And you may also have noticed that the fan speed is at 1,816 RPM, despite the fan being at automatic, so it wasn't set to the highest out the gate. So with the fans and the temperatures inside set to automatically adjust, you could see that the system had clearly reached quite high temperatures. And indeed, this system had been on for at least 2 years prior to this. So that dust buildup was notably higher than that of the DS920 that we saw. So what about after the cleaning there? Once again, we took the device apart without getting down to anything too invasive, without invalidating our warranty there, and cleaned it throughout. Again, I could have rushed maybe a cloth over it as well, but I wanted to use just the gun. And then from there, we saw that the system, when we rebooted the NAS, was all right, but I didn't want that to be enough to just turn it on and it was cooler. So rather than going for that 90 minutes, I then set the device up, running all of its backup routines, all of its synchronization, all its scheduled backup snapshots and more, for 3 days. 3 days, 16 hours to be precise. What did we see? Well, the CPU after that time was 36 degrees, a huge decrease of 17 degrees. And we saw the system overall temperature down to 31 degrees. So again, 31 degrees, and that's a 19-degree difference to what we saw previously, with the RPM sitting at around 1,313. Now, the reason that's important, and we have to at least give it the benefit of the doubt that the other system had been on for an extended period of time, the fan spinning up and down, the system may have had it stuck at that higher fan rotation, but given that the temperature on the previous system was a higher temp and the fan was higher reactive to it, this was the fan lower with a lower temp. It wasn't the fan had just powered down. I checked the logs. The fan hadn't gone much higher than that by around 100 RPM in the previous 24 hours there. And what about the hard drive? The hard drive sat around 34 to 36 degrees each, which in of itself is actually pretty darn good as well. A drop of around 17 degrees. But that additional drive, it is worth highlighting that one of the drives was clearly having issues, did kind of undermine the result, staying at around 47 degrees there, which was only 1 degree off what we saw before. So I have to do some more investigation into that. But luckily, we had a third test to fall back on there. Despite the fact that QNAP gave us mostly positive results, I still wasn't 100% certain whether using this device was going to mean your system would run better. So for this one, I went deep. I got my own archival backup. This is a 1621 XS that is just a cold storage for me. It's completely write once, read many from the ground up with the files that it receives. And ultimately from it, this thing had been on with no reboot for 92 days. As you can see on screen, it is running DSM 6.2. I've not upgraded this to DSM 7. I use it for other tests as well as a bit of a test area. But 92 days of operation, and prior to that, this system had been on for almost 3.5 years. So needless to say, since I'd first received that device, I've been running it non-stop, and the dust buildup on it was clear. It was far worse than the other ones I've seen. It's never been cleaned or sprayed out there. So as we can see, the hard drive temperature inside was 54 to 55 degrees for those drives, and it was only 3 disks inside. I have 2 10 TBs and a third 10 TB as a hot spare within those 2, and I plan to add drives over time as this particular archive increases. And the CPU at 61 degrees there. So we can see dust all over the place. We can see dust on the trays. We can see dust blocking one of the Synology logos. You know, shame on me for letting this system get to the condition it has. It is a remote backup. It's not even one that I'm in regular close proximity with for months at a time. But nonetheless, when we run the thermo camera all the way around it, we could see the build up at the back at 41 to 42 degrees, and it is a metal chassis for dissipation, was still not too bad. But the problem is the heat was clearly leaving, but the fans were clearly having to work harder, and ultimately ventilation was the reduced ventilation was keeping a lot of the heat in the middle there. So grabbed the fan and got to work, cleaning the hell out of this and spraying all the way along. Again, nothing too invasive, just easy access panels and the fan only. What were the results? Well, I booted the device up, and then after about 40-50 minutes, I rebooted the system for 40 to 50 minutes there, and the CPU sat at around 45 degrees, which is pretty darn good. And then on top of that, the hard drives are all sat at around 39 degrees each. Again, this is a system that is probably going to be accessed the least, and as the years go by, that dust is going to build up once again. But everything I've seen up to this point has shown me that build-ups on NAS, dust build-ups on NAS should be cleaned away. That probably isn't a huge surprise. It'd be nice if we could keep them regularly cleaned. And what difference is a bit of dust going to make? Well, it looks like the difference is about 10 to 15 degrees. And if that means a lot to you, especially in M.2 NVMe systems there, then it might not harm you long term to grab yourself something like this and clean the hell out of your systems. But that's just 3 isolated examples. This may not count for you. Now, for larger rack mount solutions with larger fan arrays, I would say in the enterprise sector or large scale business sector, regular cleaning and maintenance is, I'm not even going to say advised, I'm going to say is paramount. But it's weird to say that even compact systems like this, I would say, could stand to have a little bit of air push through them from time to time, and not an over-reliance on the passive ventilation and just 1 or 2 fans having to work overtime to keep these systems squeaky clean. But This has been Should You Clean Your NAS and exactly how to do it. I'll put a link to this thing below. Use it, ignore it, buy it. It really is up to you, but I like it. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching. I'll probably make a written article about this soon enough. And apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.